For generations, firefighters rarely had to think about terrorism or weapons of mass destruction. But in the post-9/11 world, first responders in every community need to be part of a coordinated effort to protect the public against these threats. To help you recognize the factors that may impact your response and how to be a part of an integrated team, your learning objectives are to understand types of terrorism, potential targets, indicators of a threat, integrated response structures, warfare agents, detection, federal assistance, and basic incident priorities. Terrorists can strike any community at any time. Knowing the correct actions to take as part of an integrated response can limit the impact on the public and those called upon to help. Terrorists are categorized into two distinct types: foreign and domestic. Both groups intend to produce fear and confusion and harm as many citizens as possible. Some terrorists may be trying to attack emergency service personnel, even if the original event is a hoax. Understanding the means and motives behind these groups may provide insight about potential targets in your community. An initial consideration is to determine if nearby training facilities and institutions provide the type of education that could assist terrorists. An example of this would be a flight school. If this type of facility is nearby, consider how an attack may be based on the training provided by the institution. Also, determine the availability of raw materials such as fuels, fertilizers, and weapons. If distributors of these products are in your jurisdiction, make sure lines of communication are well established between dealers and local government agencies should suspicious persons want to buy them. The same is true if production or lab equipment is available for purchase within your community. Some of this equipment can be used to produce any number of biological or chemical weapons, or used to produce drugs to finance terrorist activities. Information about unusual orders of chemicals in unorthodox quantities should be communicated to the appropriate law enforcement agencies. You may also need to be on the lookout for threatening literature or websites in your community. They may predict future actions or dangerous behavior. Being vigilant about maintaining communication with the public is an effective way to avoid a potential disaster. Be on the lookout for these signs as a part of your daily operations. Every jurisdiction has at least one target of interest to terrorists. These may include mass transit systems, where terrorists can injure or kill a large number of people in a confined area; federal, state, and local government buildings; telecommunication facilities; high-volume economic areas such as shopping malls; and historic or symbolic locations. More specific targets include FBI, ATF, and IRS offices, military installations, Planned Parenthood offices, abortion clinics, laboratories, and churches. Your local pre-plan should identify what areas may attract terrorists and how you will react to these incidents. You may also want to collaborate with other agencies in your jurisdiction to monitor certain dates that can hold significance to militant groups. An example would be the Oklahoma City bombing, which occurred on April 19th, exactly 1 year after the Waco incident. The same significance can be connected to the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, Hitler's birthday, and other dates associated with controversial subjects. The key is to pre-plan for these events and anticipate where and when an attack could be likely. According to the FBI, 93% of terrorists choose explosives as their weapon of choice. The presence of an unattended or suspicious-looking package in a target area should raise your alert level. It could also be the indicator of a secondary explosion intended for first responders. Immediately isolate the hazard area and call law enforcement if you see any of these signs. And be prepared to perform support and scene control operations. Lab equipment in an unusual place is another indicator. These labs could be used for making drugs, bombs, or chemical or biological agents. Some labs have been found in cars, mobile homes, and in areas where children are present. Should you locate a lab, use your area response plan to inform the appropriate agencies. Unusual bags, bottles, or cylinders in the ownership of unlikely people should also be cause for concern, as should an unusual number of victims having seizures, nausea, and vomiting, as they are symptoms of a biological or chemical attack. EMS teams should help identify the type of chemical agents affecting victims, which can help you determine if a terrorist group was responsible. In other cases, unusual odors or vapor clouds should indicate the possibility of an attack. Understanding the indicators will dictate your planning process as well as your response. The impact of a terrorist attack will require a highly coordinated effort on the part of several emergency response groups.
Received, will advise PD request to establish unified command, First Christian Church parking lot, 9:30.
These include the fire service, EMS, law enforcement, emergency management, and other federal agencies and military assets. To help streamline this effort, the Federal Emergency Management Agency created NIMS, the National Incident Management System, to integrate various assets in a response to a terrorist attack. The goals of the NIMS system are to standardize organizational structures, processes, and procedures, standardize planning, training, and exercises, create personnel qualification standards, define equipment acquisition and certification standards, establish interoperable communications processes, procedures, and systems, create information management systems with a commonly accepted architecture, identify supporting technologies such as voice and data communications, information systems, data display systems, and specialized technologies, and establish publication management processes and activities. Federal agencies also are required to use the NIMS framework in domestic incident management and in support of state and local incident response and recovery activities. NIMS is a standardized method for incident management and response and provides numerous insights on how to handle operations. Make sure the agencies in your jurisdiction train to and understand this system. Warfare agents and weapons of mass destruction come in many shapes and sizes, but all have the same deadly intent. These can include nerve agents such as tabun, sarin, soman, and V agent that are related to pesticides. To produce a toxic effect, the chemicals need to be inhaled, injected, or touched by victims. Wind direction and spill size will greatly impact the scope of the incident, as will the temperature. Incendiary devices are also considered to be warfare agents and include Molotov cocktails and other fire-producing devices. Typically, these are used not only to burn victims, but to draw first responders to a specific location for a potential secondary attack. Blister agents, also known as vesicants, include mustard, distilled mustard, nitrogen mustard, and lewisite. These compounds are designed to incapacitate victims by causing severe irritation and blistering. Blister agents can often have a delayed effect of up to 15 minutes to several hours. Blood and choking agents are particularly dangerous and are commonly found in industrial settings. Common blood agents include cyanide and cyanogen chloride that disrupt the body's ability to use oxygen within the bloodstream. Choking agents include chlorine and phosgene, which are common to almost every community. Chlorine is especially effective as a weapon, as it can injure and kill vast numbers of people in an urban area. Other common materials used by terrorists are irritants. These include mace, pepper spray, and tear gas. They are usually released to create chaos and injure a large number of people. Most irritants dissipate after 15 or 20 minutes. But again, these can be used as a ploy to draw first responders into a secondary attack.
He's in his boxes right now. He was the one that I was...
Biological agents and toxins are some of the most deadly weapons terrorists can deploy against the population. These include anthrax, mycotoxins, plague, tularemia, and ricin. Different routes of entry are required for each of these agents, but usually involve skin contact, inhalation, or injection. Although these agents require training to distribute effectively, their effects are often fatal. Anthrax and ricin are the most likely agents to be used in a terrorist attack. Although military-grade anthrax is extremely difficult to make, it has been used to kill several people in the U.S. in recent years. Symptoms can include the rapid onset of respiratory distress, cyanosis, and sweating. Ricin, on the other hand, is relatively easy to make, but requires injection to be effective. Symptoms of ricin poisoning can include vomiting, diarrhea, hallucinations, seizures, and bloody urine. Both of these require quick treatment to limit the effects of the agents. Radioactive devices can be extremely deadly, and the level of threat is relatively unknown. Still, the most likely use of a radioactive agent is a radiological dispersion device. These would probably involve pharmaceutical-grade radiation and would have a limited range of effectiveness. However, not much is currently known about new developments for radioactive agents as weapons. Although a number of potential agents, techniques, and targets exist, remember to consider what local industries and prominent institutions may be likely to attract terrorists. Pre-planning and working in concert with other agencies as part of a NIM structure is the best way to provide an effective response. Depending on your department's resources, you can use many devices to detect weapons of mass destruction. If you are on the scene of a suspicious incident, you may choose to use test strips that come in two basic types, M8 and M9. M8 paper acts much like a pH test, as it will indicate nerve and blister agents. It can also detect VX, as the color changes to indicate the type of agent present. M9 tape can be placed on the responder's boots, gloves, or vehicles to indicate the presence of nerve and blister agents by turning red. Combination strips are also available. Test strips are low-cost options that are relatively easy to use. Another detection option is to use colorimetric sampling tubes that detect warfare agents without the use of electronic devices. But if you have access to handheld electronic detection devices, they can be used to indicate nerve and blister agents as well as irritants such as pepper spray. Some models also include a radiation pager that tracks exposures. A few biological detection devices are available. Some of them match the structure of a material with the known DNA of an agent. However, the best method of detection comes from lab-based systems. After September 11th, the Department of Homeland Security was created by merging 22 agencies. Of special interest to first responders is the fact that the Federal Emergency Management Agency is now under the umbrella of DHS, and that the DHS also designates the FBI as being the lead agency during a crisis. The FBI has a hazardous materials response unit that works closely with local hazmat teams. Also, FEMA offers urban search and rescue teams to help in heavy rescue operations such as building collapses. The military may also be a part of a response to a major incident. The Army has units that handle warfare agents and test them in self-contained labs. And the Marines have a chemical and biological incident response force. Other federal agencies include the National Guard and Metropolitan Medical Response Teams. Working with nearby federal agencies should be a part of your response pre-plan based on NIMS and available resources. Once you understand the hazards and concerns of the terrorist threat, you need to adapt some basic incident priorities. A sample of a prioritized list would be to isolate the hazard area and deny entry, use the quick in, quick out method, request the assistance of a hazmat team and bomb squad, limit personnel in the hazard area, create staging areas, contact the necessary emergency management agency, isolate victims, begin decontamination, establish triage, give notice to nearby hospitals and healthcare facilities, be sensitive to preserving the crime scene, and use the NAERG guide to determine the correct precautions and treat patients. It is critical that you define your incident priorities before a terrorist attack occurs. The threat of a terrorist attack and the deadly potential of weapons of mass destruction should be major concerns for first responders. Understanding the issues that relate to preparing for one of these events is critical to all local, state, and federal agencies. In this program, you have learned about types of terrorism, targets, indicators, integrated response, warfare agents, detection, federal assistance, and basic incident priorities. The lessons of the recent past send a clear message. Terrorism is a part of today's world, and first responders are on the front lines of this battle. Knowing your role in a combined effort to limit harm to the public is the duty and responsibility of every firefighter in every jurisdiction.